Definite maybe. Scared of the dying, am I even trying? Are they safer at home? I started giving, I started believing the truth.
Hello and welcome to Thank God It's Friday. I'm Elaine White and I'm here with co-host Peter Cooper and Jenny McKay, and of course our producer Alex, who is managing the tech and your comments. This week we're looking at what lockdown has been like, not just here in the UK, but around the world. We have a packed programme for you tonight with fantastic guests from places as far afield as New York, Oman, New Zealand, Toronto and Spain. Our guest from Spain is going to be live with us tonight. Due to time differences, I've been chatting with the others over the last few days and can't wait to show you the highlights. Now, lockdown has been difficult for all of us, and those difficult times are part of the show tonight. But we're also focusing on the positive side because, as ever, there is always good news. There are always good things to celebrate. We're so glad that you're here with us tonight. We need and value your contribution, your input. Please feel free to comment on Facebook while we're live. And if you have any questions for our live guest or our presenters, please share them. Those are just some photos from the different countries that tonight's guests are from. So now it's time for our first guest of the evening, and his name is Callum, and he's originally from Scotland and has been working in New York since just before lockdown. And Callum has some fascinating information to tell us about what has been happening there. So Callum, could you just tell us a little bit about what lockdown's been like for you in New York?
Hi, Elaine. Yeah, of course I can, and thanks for inviting me on this. I do really appreciate it. So yeah, lockdown here has been, I think, quite an experience for me. To give some background, I'm not like a native New Yorker. I've been here since September, so I only had about 4 or 5 months in the city before lockdown really started. I think here the big date was around about 16th of March, mid-March, where the US governor, sorry, the New York governor Cuomo announced that there would be a lockdown of New York City and all non-essential staff would need to stay at home, shops would close, restaurants would close, bars would close, and basically the whole city shut down Yeah, that was 16th of March, and I think it hit pretty hard. I was actually in the office that Monday, and I decided to walk home rather than go on the subway. And I remember walking up Second Avenue on my way home and seeing all the bars being boarded up, everyone putting up signs saying we're closed until further notice.
Gosh, yeah.
It was a bit of a shock, and it was just interesting to see it in person, like while walking home with all my stuff that I needed.
Yeah, yeah, so quite sudden. And so what's happened since? Are things easing up there now?
Yeah, things have started easing up a bit. I think the US or New York is doing something similar to what the UK is doing by having different waves of opening up based off of how many people are still getting sick. So I think we're about to go into wave 3 in 2 weeks, but we've done wave 1 and 2 so far, which has basically been reopening most bars, shops and restaurants and coffee shops, but only for takeout. So I think the approach here has really been let people go and buy stuff, let people get food and drinks, but only for takeout. So I guess one positive, it's quite nice to see there's a bit more of like a community feel around the streets, which is a bit missing in the part of New York I work in, at least, because everyone's outside bars, kind of like in, I don't know, the City of London or some studenty areas, all just chatting and drinking.
Yeah.
Seeing a bit of a happier look on people's faces.
Yeah, so you can do that socially distanced outside, which is good, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, Callum, then what do you think have been the positives? What would be the key positive, if there have been positives from this? What have you found?
There definitely have been positives. I mean, I could name, I guess, 2 or 3. Some for me personally, and some for, I think, the city. I mean, it's good to see the city come together. I know in the UK people were doing the cheering for the NHS.
Yeah.
They're doing something similar here, but it's been every single day at 7 p.m. Not like once every few weeks. And I kind of thought it would die down after a week or two, but it didn't. It's gone on strong for over 2 months now, which is pretty incredible. And people down on the streets will join in, and it's again coming back to that community thing. It's nice to see, and I think obviously in difficult times people do come closer together. And I think maybe for me personally that's been a thing as well. The friends I have here and the people I've seen during the lockdown, the people I live with, we're all going through the same thing together in a small Manhattan apartment, and it has brought us closer together and brought, I guess, an appreciation of normal life, and kind of reminded me at least to be thankful for what we had pre-lockdown.
Yes.
And then I
absolutely.
guess in a personal sense, sometimes to have a bit more sleep has been nice with no commute.
Oh, yeah, so I'm sure that's made a difference. So you've been working from home all since then. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's a
I
big
have
change.
my work. Yeah, they gave us equipment to work from home, and it's been busy. I work in the finance industry, and especially back in March and April when a lot of companies were getting rid of their staff and trying to decide what they were going to do. It was quite hectic, but it's been I think beneficial in quite a few ways working from home. It's definitely more flexible.
Yes, yeah, sure. Yes, I think so. You sort of get used, and so many people have had to do it, haven't they? It's been quite a big change for quite a few people. Yeah. So, and so, is there anything in particular you think has been really difficult, or the biggest negative, if you like? Has there been something that you think is a negative?
I think a couple of things. Again, for me personally, someone on my floor at work passed away, which was very, very sad. And he's the only person I've known to be like affected by the virus in that way, and it just makes it very personal when you actually know someone. It's not like I knew him very, very well, but it's very, very sad, and that did definitely affect me and made me much more conscious of it.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I guess same thing that most people living in a larger city without a garden would be suffering from is kind of like cabin fever in a way. I live in a 3-bedroom flat in New York with 4 people, and we don't have a desk.
That's not good.
It's been tough, but like I said earlier, the positive is we've become much more friendly. And
So, Callum, what has happened to people with job-wise? Have people been furloughed, or people being made redundant? What's happened in that way?
so, yeah, this is one of, I think, seeing both sides, the British side and the American side, where it's obvious kind of the differences in culture and like the support given to people. The US government hasn't set up like a furlough scheme as such. A lot of people have just lost their jobs, and I think in a lot of them, especially in service industries in the city, will be rehired when places reopen. I mean, you're not going to go and look for new staff when you can rehire your old staff, but instead of having like the furlough payments, the US government's been giving out grants to people. So I think it was around about $1,500 they gave to every US taxpayer in March, and I think there's been smaller follow-up payments since then, and I think they've boosted the amount people can receive through unemployment. But there is a different kind of concept to the UK's furlough scheme, where you keep on and the government pays your salary or 80% of it. So it's interesting seeing the differences, and I think that is part of the reason there's been such a large increase in unemployment here compared to the UK and some of the European countries.
What's it like out on the streets of New York now? You know, obviously it's a vibrant city usually. You know, how's that? How is it now?
You're right, it is such a vibrant multicultural city. There's people from all over the world living here, and I think that's one of the remarkable things. It's kind of kept that throughout the lockdown. I mean, compared to cities in the UK, people here don't have gardens, they don't have balconies, they don't have anything. So people really do hang out on the streets. People play music out there. People have gatherings out in the streets with their friends from different neighborhoods. And it's been interesting because that's not really died down that much during the lockdown. I think back in April, when it was a bit cooler, people really stayed inside a bit more and were just, I think, a little bit afraid to go out. But now we've gotten into late May, June. The weather here has gotten warm. It's like 30 degrees right now. Everyone wants to go out, and New York's really, I think, getting that flare back. And one of the differences with social distancing in the UK versus the US is that here, like, there's not restrictions on who you can meet, where you can travel to, but you really have to wear a mask all of the time. So you have to wear a mask everywhere indoors, and it's highly encouraged that you wear one outdoors, and almost everyone is. So right now, if you go for a walk on the streets, there's a lot of people hanging out in really friendly ways. Everyone's just wearing masks, and I think it's becoming the new normal, and I think that will be the new normal going forwards. People have made their own masks, like designer ones or funky designs, different patterns, different styles, and they're for sale. Like, I wouldn't have to walk more than 5 minutes outside of my flat to find someone selling a unique looking mask. So it's interesting. You see that flare coming through, and I think that, to use this word, like the American dream, like people coming here and doing what they can to get by during this difficult time, and you can see that out on the streets, and you can see like the soul of the city really coming through.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, Callum. It's been great to talk to you. Yeah, all the best.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. I like the idea of a designer mask. Well, more from some of our other guests later, but first we go over to Pete for something completely different.
Yes, it's Peter, the virtual vicar here, and as usual earlier today I was wandering around, this time heading towards the Mersey. Roll VT. The River Mersey is one big river. I mean, it's just part of the scenery here, you get used to it. But it's such a big river, and it's so deep, and it has tidal water, so it has these different currents which make it very dangerous, that it's a place where you do see accidents happening in the water, sometimes fatal. Now, back in 1984, they decided to do something about it, and the Mersey Inland Rescue Service was formed. Now, this service then in 1986 had its own special launch built, which you see motoring about, going to rescue people. And not just people, different crafts of different sizes get rescued when the launch sets out. It's quite small, it's a little bit cramped to work in there apparently. But this, working for some time, that's back in 1984, it started then in 1986, their special launch. They've been travelling out from Pier Head, which is on the Liverpool side of the river. I'm on the Wirral side at the moment. So I just showed you, it's right over there on the other side of the Mersey. You can see the Liverpool skyline. On the other side, we can see Pier Head. The sun got him eyes a bit. Over here is Pier Head, and over there, that's where the launch is based. It's about 8 miles down from the airport. It's just here up this side of the Mersey, just down there. It's not far away. You've got the sea, so you get choppy waters here, and it's there that they're based. It's story time now. I'm going to tell you about Rob Edel, who joined the Mersey Inland Rescue. Almost, and it's essentially joined in 1985. He's got plenty of stories to tell, but one is of one night on Halloween. It was an eerie night, dark, and you could of course hear the water lapping, and you could see that the river was empty except for one little boat that was adrift in the middle of the river. And he was sent out, not on the special launch yet of course, but sent out in a boat to try and investigate. And as they drew closer to the boat, they saw that there were two figures in the boat. They were perfectly well, it's just that their boat was drifting, had lost control and had lost power. As he got closer, he saw that in the boat were Batman and a skeleton. They'd been on their way back from a fancy dress party. Well, Batman and the skeleton were rescued that night by the Mersey Inland Rescue. Seems like it should have been the other way round. Batman, yes, there he is. It seems to me that it should really be Batman being rescued. But now, for our live interview, and over to Jenny.
Hi, it's Rev Jenny the Vet here, and I'm very pleased to have another vet on the show this evening. And our guest is Tamara Viega, and she's a Spanish vet. So over to Tamara.
Hello, Jenny. Thanks for
Welcome.
inviting me. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm very pleased that you've been able to join us because I know you're on holiday. You're normally in
I
Madrid,
am,
but you're up in the
finally.
north of the country.
Yes, I am. Finally on holidays.
I'm very curious as to what the experience has been for vets and pets in Spain during lockdown. Could you give us a little bit of an insight?
Yes, well, the situation changed how the clinics were set up. So for us, the lockdown started mid-March, and initially we didn't really know if we could actually go to the vet, but vets are considered first type of needs, so they had to stay open. But the owners of the clinic will decide if they wanted to stay open or not. And the first change was to not let the owners in with the pet. So you could take your pet to the clinic, but you would stay outside as a client. And they recommended only doing emergencies. So of course the cases drop. So it actually affected the owners of the clinics, as well as many owners didn't want to go outside, so they would only take emergencies. So I guess it did impact the clinics, but we're back to normal nowadays. So that's good.
That's great. That's great to know. And we heard from Callum, some of the good things, I suppose, about lockdown, some of the inspiring things. What do you feel were some of the good things that perhaps have come out of lockdown in Spain?
I think we value normal things, like daily things, more now. Before, you just take things for granted and you just say, I want to go to this place, I'll just go. I get to see my parents or, my grandparents whenever I want to. And health is something you don't even think when you're not sick or when you don't have the risk of getting sick. So, for example, in my case, my parents don't live in the same area of the country. They live in a different state. So, you take for granted that they're going to be okay every day. And all of a sudden, COVID happens, and then you're in lockdown and you don't get to see your parents. And then you're like, health is so important, stay at home, So, yeah, I guess the value of, your values change. What's important for you changes all of a sudden. And health becomes the first thing. Then you also feel really lucky. You actually have a job. I know a lot of people that lost their jobs, and you value more, the situation you have. Sometimes we complain, like, I'm so tired. And then all of a sudden you're like, thank God I have a job that I like and that I actually get to do. And then, of course, you value things you're lacking at that moment. So seeing your friends and your family whenever you want to, going out for a drink, having a call from someone saying, hey, do you have time to go to have a drink, a coffee or something? And you can do that. So, yeah, I guess the good things is, I would say for me would be to value things that we just take for granted. And we just think that, everyone is there, everyone is healthy, everyone has a job. And then all of a sudden something changes and your life changes. So.
Absolutely. It's valuing the small things, isn't it, really?
Exactly. Yeah.
And lockdown was quite severe in Spain then. I think it lasted longer than in the UK.
It was quite long. It was quite long. Our lockdown started mid-March. In Madrid, I live in Madrid, well, in the outskirts of Madrid. So they were kind of strict with us here in Spain. And then they started what they call the phases of going back to the new normality. And different states went at different speeds depending on the infected cases. So Madrid and Barcelona were the cities that went back to the new normal the latest. So, until mid-May, I could not leave the house at all unless I needed to go to the grocery store or to the hospital. Those were the only two things you could do, or to take your pet to the hospital if your pet was really sick or things like that, but just for things that you actually really needed to, you need to eat, you need to go to the hospital, you need to go to the pharmacy, but that's all you could do. And then until last Sunday, we could not go out to a different state. So that's when on Monday, I actually travel within the country, but until last Sunday, we couldn't. So it has been quite strict, yes. And until mid-May, we couldn't leave the house. Yeah. And then after that, we could just leave the house for 1 hour a day, 1 kilometer distance. So it was pretty strict until early June.
That's very hard. That's very hard. And just finally, what's happening with the pets at the moment over in Spain?
Right now we're doing pretty much.
To the vets?
Yes, right now we're pretty much doing normal life in general. You can take your pet to the vet, and last week I actually went to the vet, and because we were in phase 3, now it's new normal, but phase 3 you could already walk into the clinic. So I could walk in as a client, even though I'm a vet, I was walking in as a client with my pet, and before I couldn't even go in. So my dog is way more relaxed if I'm inside with her than if I'm not. They are saying they are having a lot of work in the clinic because they are catching up with everything that they couldn't do during the 3 months that was not an emergency, plus all the normal emergencies you would get any day of the year. So I think they're overworking, because there are too many things to do.
They were
so
underworked,
things that got canceled.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, they had to delay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for giving us an insight into Spain and hearing about some of the similarities and differences between us and you. So have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for inviting me. You have a nice evening too.
Thank you, Tamara. So, back to Elaine now.
It's really interesting to hear about lockdown in different countries, isn't it? What do you make, Pete, of
Yes.
what our guests have told us?
Well, I was interested in well, both interested were both. I was interested in both interviews, all the different facets of how different countries have coped. The New York thing about everyone going around in masks and having a sort of a creative view of the mask, having them look nice. There's an interesting one. See it being a trend. If you travel out into the Far East, that's been a trend for some time. You know, they've been affected by such outbreaks in the past, and many people were taken to wearing masks, partly because of the extreme pollution in the big cities. But you know, it becomes like a fashion statement. I don't know if it's going to take off here. I mean, they are really uncomfortable. Wearing
Yeah.
wearing a mask a lot of the time is really uncomfortable. If you work, I did a little bit of scientific work where you had to wear a mask because you're in aseptic conditions, and I always found it very uncomfortable. I don't know what you, Jenny, you've probably had to use a mask in your job, I guess, have you?
Yes, yes, and yeah, the vets, just even when they're interacting with people at the moment, have to wear masks. I've got to say it's turning
Yes.
into quite a bit of a fashion thing as well, because you can get different
Oh, is that right?
animals
Yeah.
on the masks. Yeah, so it
Yeah,
is
that
quite a
And
trendy thing.
yeah,
that's what
and
I'd seen on
Jenny,
Facebook was dog
what
masks.
animal do you have? Sorry. What?
Go.
Oh, I'm sure you
Oh,
know.
I was gonna say.
Begins with C.
What that,
Yeah,
oh, oh no,
gotta be
not
a
a
cat.
camel again. Oh yes, a cat. Yeah, you've got to be a cat, of course. Yeah. Sorry,
Well,
Elaine.
I was
Back
just
to you.
saying,
Back to you.
yes, I was just saying that I'd seen on Facebook lots of adverts for dog masks with different breeds of dogs. So I'm sure that'll be
Oh right, yes.
that sort of thing will continue.
Yep.
that's
Okay,
I'll get a
crazy.
it
collie.
is, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. So now back to our interviews, and our third guest is Steve, who's from the UK but has lived and worked abroad for many years, and he's currently based in Oman and has joined us from there to give us a unique perspective on life in lockdown, many miles from family. So, Steve, what's lockdown been like in Oman? You know, what's happened there?
Well, probably very similar to lockdowns that people have experienced the world over. Having spent a little bit of the time since everything started back in the UK, I did get an opportunity to compare what was happening. So, going back to the middle of March, when Oman started restricting entry of people back into the country, expats, essentially closing it off for returning expats. They kept it open for for nationals of Oman to be able to get back in from the various places around the world.
Right.
And then at the end of March, they actually closed the airport down. So a little bit different from the UK in that respect, that they actually did shut off all commercial traffic coming into the country at
Right.
that time.
Yeah. Sure.
And basically the same sort of idea of staying at home, social distancing,
Yeah.
not meeting in groups,
Yeah.
and police to similar in a similar way to what has happened
Okay.
elsewhere.
So has that meant that you've been working from home rather than being in an office? You know, has that affected you work-wise?
Yeah, around about that time, things accelerated very, very quickly. What happened within a relatively short time is we went from limiting visitors into the office, and then making sure that the people who had returned from international travel were quarantining, people who had come into contact with anyone with symptoms were quarantining. And very, very rapidly, we got to the point where we felt that it was important to close the office, and we actually we did some testing first to make sure that we had the IT systems in place for people to be able to work from home, and then proved it up very quickly, and within a few days we'd gone to 100% working from home
Yeah.
for
So that's
the office.
Yeah, so
So
that's
that's
been
been
a
the
big
experience.
change. Yes, yeah, good. So for you then, Steve, I mean, have there been any positives about lockdown? Would you say what would have been the best thing about the impact of this?
Well, I think that from a technical standpoint, I think it's been you know really informative for any kind of thinking we might do about what the future of work is going to be. So things that we might have hesitated to try have been forced to be tried, and we've demonstrated pretty successfully that capability for people to work from home is there.
Yeah,
Um, you know, that gives everybody, I think, some ideas about how the future of work might look
yeah,
in terms of giving
yeah,
people
yeah,
education, fewer having to commute, and so on and so forth. So I think it's given us a lot of food for thought. And then the other thing that's been really positive is just how everyone's come together to make it work, and you get the people realise that it's very stressful for people, and everyone has a very different experience of what working from home is like. You've got people who are at home and they're on their own, and there's nobody else around, and then you've got people who've got large families that are all over the place. They've got limited space to be able to be working, and that can present challenges for them.
yeah.
And everyone's kind of reaching out, making sure that people are being contacted on a regular basis, so that people aren't left to their own devices, and just make sure
Yeah.
everybody's being.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? I think that's been common here as well, about people coming together to support each other, and also the home working thing is definitely a theme of has been a positive in a way. Things that people had thought weren't possible suddenly are, as you say, that oh no, we couldn't do that from home, and yet people are having to find a way, and somehow they have, haven't they? And that's changed. So yeah, I think that's good. So what's been the most difficult thing, would you say then, with lockdown?
Well, I mean, from a personal point of view, I'm here without my family. So as I said earlier,
Yeah.
we've got a lot of people here. Most of our employees are actually nationals of the country itself. So they have the family support networks around them. And then of our expatriate population, it's a big mix. There are people like me who are on their own and have family back in their home country, and then there are people who've got their families here. But what everyone's got is some reason why they would ordinarily be wanting to make a trip back to their home location at some point. And prior to the lockdown, I was managing the situation for myself with pretty frequent visits back to my home location to see family. It's not just seeing them; it's being there for those special and important occasions,
Yeah.
and getting the sort of the humdrum of life through the humdrum of life, and get sort things out. There's always a large number of things that need to get done, and if you're not able to get back on a regular basis, it starts to get very, very difficult.
Yeah, yeah,
But so in that sort of, I spent 10 weeks in lockdown here without getting back, and then I got an opportunity to get back, which was great. It was
Yeah.
2.5 weeks being back home, and that sort of that contrast threw it all into sharp relief, and you kind of understood even better how difficult the lockdown period was.
yeah, sure.
So
Yeah,
it's definitely really the connection with
yeah.
family.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I think that's probably been the case, as you say, for lots of people where you are, and and even people here, isn't it? Not able to see the people, your immediate family, even, or people you love, has been quite tough on an awful lot of people, really. So yeah, yeah,
Well, I think in many regards, it doesn't matter whether you're 3,000 miles away in a foreign country or you're 30 miles away. If you're locked down, you're locked down. You
yeah,
still can't get to see people. So in that regard, there's a very strong similarity in the experience. But I think where it starts to differ is in the stress around the in an emergency, if something really serious were to happen, there is just no answer. There is no possibility of getting kind of approval to get in a car and drive 60 miles or whatever to go and see somebody.
Yeah.
The airport's closed. There's no authorization for travel. And that's a stress that builds up in people in these kind of situations. It's not that it's happened. It's just the worry that if something did happen, that there's nothing to do about it. You're sort of stranded.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Happen that can be most sort of debilitating in a situation.
Yeah, sure. No, I can appreciate that. That's really difficult. And, hopefully it appears that in many countries anyway, it's signs of easing up now, isn't it? So we can, hope that is going to be changing in the very near future as well for you and for other people as well. So, well, thank you, Steve. That's been great to talk to you. It's really interesting to hear, something, from a very different country to ours as well, how, your experience there. So some similarities and some things that are different. But yeah, it's been great to talk to you. So thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. It's great to hear that perspective, isn't it? And I think knowing that you've no way of getting home must be very hard for those who, for whatever reason, are abroad in lockdown. And now we go back to hear some more from Pete.
Yes, it's back to me, and I've got a bit of a plea to put out to you. I'd like to ask our viewers to send in stories. Now, the main theme of this show is, of course, coming out of the lockdown around the world, but I'm asking for stories to do with the Mersey, and these don't have to be anything to do with the lockdown, not time-bound at all. I realise that quite a few of our viewers, because we're based in Wallasey, will have stories of the Wallasey side of the Mersey, or just stories about the River Mersey. It'd be fascinating to hear them. I told you one story that I read about, but you've probably got personal stories if you've lived here. And this this show is based in Wallasey, but it has a worldwide reach, as you'll be able to see by some of the interviews we've had today. So you'll be able to tell stories about your local river and have them broadcast around the world. So make sure it's a story that you want to tell, you want people to hear, because it'll be broadcast wide. And it'd be fascinating. Just to get in touch with me, you can go straight to my website, which is thevirtualvicar.com. I'll repeat that, thevirtualvicar.com. And there's a comment section right there to get straight through to me, or just put a comment next to this video, wherever you're watching it. There'll be a comment section below or to one side of it. So just put it there and let me know. The Mersey is just such a huge part of life here. It might well be interesting for people to hear how it's affected you, whether it's a funny or a moving story. I mean, the Mersey used to be in a terrible state. It's an industrial area. Over recent years, it's become a lot cleaner, and apparently you see salmon between September and November in parts of the river at a place called the Salmon Steps. So that's it for me. Let me know at thevirtualvicar.com of stories you have to tell about the Mersey. But for now, back to the studio with Elaine.
Well, I look forward to hearing some of those stories. Yeah, a great idea. Now, our next guests are from Toronto, Canada. They're native Canadians and have lots to tell us about lockdown there, including what has happened to their marriage. Hi, Susie and Nathan. Great to have you here.
Good morning. Thank God it's Friday.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's happened for lockdown in Toronto? How has it been for you? What's happened?
You want to go first?
Sure. Well, we almost immediately pivoted to all working out of home. So, for example, my entire office, I'm a sales guy for advertising. I've been working out of home since beginning of March. And my wife here was actually let go as part of the COVID-19 job cuts at the beginning of the process. So we've been managing on one income, but our government support's been fantastic with really easy to execute CERB, they call it, payments. So that's been great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, for us, it hasn't been that big of a shift because we are a very, very close family. Yeah. So we've really been enjoying spending time together. The dog and the cat are confused but happy. And our son, we see him as little as we saw him before. So it's we're just adjusting and try. Yeah, we're doing our best to, stay in good spirits.
Good for you. And so what? So in Toronto, was everywhere being locked down? Because in the UK, I think it was March the 23rd. I'll probably be corrected on that. But everything was locked down here. So schools and most workplaces. Has it been the same for you?
Yeah, they sent the kids home a week before March break, which we easily just parlayed into March break that never ended. Yeah, we were a good, I want to say, month or 6 weeks before the education system caught up to what was happening and started to actually give work for home. In the meantime, we started to homeschool our child with stuff that we were able to find on Amazon for teaching grade 3s and teaching grade 4s, activity sheets and guided learning. Then when the school came and actually gave us the work to keep up with the curriculum, we made an arrangement with our son, and that's no electronics until your work is done each day.
So, I mean, what would you say would be the best thing about lockdown, if there is a best thing? I know it's been a big change for everybody, but for you, what would you say had been a positive? Have there been some positives?
I've really liked not having to dress up and wear heels and makeup. It's been kind of liberating as a woman to just be at peace with, being natural. So I can't say that's probably not the best thing for you.
My peace as a woman is at an all-time high. I would say that the best thing for me, from my perspective, is number one, we're spending more time together as a family.
Aww.
And then number two, we're eating at home much more. Like the eating out and the takeout lifestyle that comes with commuting is gone, and we're eating 90% of our meals out of the house, which is both rewarding because I love to cook, we love to cook, and better for us. Honestly, it's better to eat at home than to get takeout every night.
Yeah. With lockdown in the UK as well, so many people are having to work from home, but actually they're wondering whether they're going to actually go back to working in an office afterwards, because people are realizing they can do their jobs at home. So is that something that's affecting you as well? Are you likely to stay working at home, do you think?
There's some pieces that just don't fit without having meetings in person sometimes. So I'm a salesperson. In-person client meetings are important. I'm going to need to get back to that. It's something lacking from our life today, and video calls just don't do it. Going to the office itself, there's a certain camaraderie that is amongst our team that I think we miss the most. It's not that we need to be close by so we can run down a hall to print something and find a printer that's convenient. It's more the camaraderie and the ideas and the sharing that happens in collaboration between colleagues that we're missing. So even now, we've spoken to the members of our team and said we want to have one day a week where the 4 members of our team are together, if nothing else, just working side by side so that we can collaborate and solve each other's problems, because we typically would sit close to each other at the office. And that convenience of saying, I have X problem, and having someone across the hall say, I've solved X problem, here's the solution. It's something that we're missing by working remote. So we will have some work from office as it releases back to us. But I think for the most part, when I look at our team specifically, we'll probably stay 3-4 days away from the office. From a productivity perspective, there is no commute. There's no commute home. There's no need to take a break in the middle of the day to try and figure out what you're going to do to eat. I'm under my kitchen. I can go upstairs and grab something to eat. I find that I'm much more productive working out of home. I can get much more done. So I can see it as an ongoing piece. I know not everybody will see it that way, but for our team and for me specifically, it's certainly worked well.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That's really interesting to hear about. My other question was, what has been most difficult? Is there anything in particular that you found most difficult about, lockdown, this whole situation?
Yeah. So not having a job has been very, very stressful for me. It's completely, I know you disagree, but it's affected the dynamic of the marriage in terms of, you're going to disagree, but I don't have a job. I'm not an equal participant in terms of finances. So that has been very, very difficult. It's hard to be unemployed in the best of times.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know what I'm going back to. So that has been very hard. I'm assuming my YouTube career will flourish and I will be an international internet sensation. But assuming that does not happen, I do need to figure out my next step. So that is a constant concern for me. But as much as this has been, you said that lots of good news has come out of this pandemic, and a lot of people, their true colors are showing. And, for us, it's been a testament to our marriage and the strength of the partnership. So
Yeah.
I'll stick with you.
Thank you.
So
These
thank you for that. So bad news, but good news. So yeah, great. Oh, thank
Bad
you for
news,
that.
but confirmation of marriage news.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. And thank you for joining us. It's been really good to talk to you. Well, Susie spoke about her YouTube career because she's actually been very creative in lockdown. She's set up a blog YouTube channel called Lettuce and Lemons, and it's good fun. Make sure you take a look. Lettuce and Lemons on YouTube. And now we're over to Jen for our very special award.
So it's back to the pet award for this week, and we thought, sticking with the travel theme, that we would choose a pet that had travelled extensively round the world. And we have our pet. This is Chuckles. Chuckles is 12 and a half years old, and she's a long-haired Dachshund cross, born in South Africa, moved to the UK, then to the Netherlands, and now she's actually in New Zealand in the North Island. So quite a travelled pet. And I think, Elaine, that we're staying with the theme of New Zealand, aren't we?
We are. Yes, because last but definitely not least, we have two great guests from New Zealand, June and Dave. And they're some good friends of mine who emigrated from the UK to New Zealand some 15 years ago. And they've got some really interesting things to tell us about lockdown in a country that has been very successful in combating the virus. So hello, June and Dave. It's great to have you here.
Morning,
Morning.
Elaine.
Yes, morning for you, evening for us. Lovely to see you. So June and Dave, tell us, how has it been lockdown for you? What happened in New Zealand? I think it was different from the UK.
We sort of went into lockdown really rapidly. So on around the 20th, 22nd of March, the Prime Minister made a national speech saying that even though we've tightened the border controls up, we think we need to do something extra. We'll do a 4-level system. We will immediately go into level 3 days later. We'll enter into a full lockdown at level 4, and that lasted 28 days.
I think her philosophy was to go hard and go early. So really just to try and nip it in the bud.
Yeah. So how did that feel to you at the time? Because I don't know, in the UK when we locked down, there were still people saying, oh, we don't need to do this, and others saying we should have done it earlier. So was that a surprise, do you think, to everyone to have to lock down so early or not?
No, I think the majority of the country thought it was a good idea to do that to just eliminate it as quickly as possible. So I think we were referred to as a team of 5 million. So I felt the leadership carried us well, so yes, it was rushed, but we did the shopping. We learned how to do shopping online, and but it was okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think people recognise, because we came to it late as a country, and we could see what was happening in China, we could see what happened in Italy, and I think what was beginning to happen in the UK at that time. So we could see the writing was on the wall, and people recognised that actually, we need to do this. We need to go hard.
Yes, good. And so, and how did that work out for you? What were the plus points about it? Was there anything positive that you thought about lockdown?
It took us a week or so to get into a rhythm and a routine, and to realise this is for a season. And I think once we got into our rhythm of daily life, which was whatever we got, I think there was a lot of trees cut down, a lot of maintenance done around the homes, and certainly I got my crafts out again, and Dave did a lot of maintenance around the house. So we just got into a daily rhythm.
Yeah.
Which included a briefing at 1 o'clock. Everybody came together at 1 o'clock to watch a briefing from the Prime Minister and the Director of Health. So
Ashton Bloomfield.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Good. Yeah. So it's
but
quite
it
positive in a
felt
way then.
strange. Yeah.
yeah.
And
It doesn't mean we didn't have bad days where you think, oh, I just want to be able to go to because we couldn't go to the beach. And our daily walks were just walking up and down this road that we lived, which was great for meeting neighbours and just talking to neighbours across the road. But it just got a little bit boring and
Yeah.
monotonous.
So were you
Yeah.
only allowed to walk a certain distance? Was that limited? So you're only allowed to go so far?
yeah, they time bound us. They basically
Okay.
said, try not to use your car. Go for no more than half an hour walk at a time.
Okay. Right.
And interestingly, when you started that, everyone was suspicious. No one knew whether they could talk and say hello. Everyone obviously was trying to keep social distancing. But as the first week went on, people relaxed a bit and sort of realised actually, the kindness message started getting through from our Prime Minister, and people began to say hi, and teddy bears appeared in the windows to entertain the kids.
Right.
And Easter egg pictures were put up, coloured, so kids can do hunts on different pieces.
Yeah. Oh.
And a number of houses really did well. There was one in just in the next village from us, where they had this actually huge teddy bear, and it was a workman one day digging a hole, and then it was an ambulance driver the next day, and a policeman the next. So they'd gone to town, and I think that
lovely.
became quite across the whole country. That became quite.
So that was the sort of symbol, really, yes, of it, because we had rainbows in the windows here. So So what about work? How did the lockdown generally affect people at work? Were people furloughed? Or people what happened to the job situation?
A lot of people worked from home. Those that couldn't just had a sabbatical, I suppose. But there has been quite a lot of businesses that have had to shut down. But so that's the sad side of it. But I think people are very good at reinventing themselves over here, and just and there were various schemes that were set up by the government to help the economy, and to help those that would have lost their jobs. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Office workers generally they work from home.
Yes.
That was okay. The more difficult ones are the hospitality industry, where cafes in particular, and it's small businesses, hairdressers, these had difficulties. But as June said, the government gave a wage subsidy, so to make sure that no one went without funds.
Right.
You could, if you had a 30% reduction in your income, then you could claim this wage subsidy as a business.
Right. Okay.
And a significant number did.
Yeah, good. Okay, that sounds good support there, really. Yeah. And so now, what's the situation now? Is lockdown completely finished for you? Is everything back to normal?
Borders are still closed, apart from people that are repatriation. So you may have had some news around that some COVID cases have come back, but they've been brought into the country rather than being in the community. But
so we're at level 1 at the moment. So, and that's as June said, that tight restriction on your borders. Still advised to social distance. Still advised to clean hands. The biggest push at the moment is record where you've been and going. So most businesses and shops now have what they call a COVID-19 QR code. So as you enter a shop, to use the disinfectant or the hand sanitizer, and then pick up this code, so you can trace where you've been. So
nice.
so that the emphasis now on is traceability. So if you've
Yes.
come in contact with somebody that didn't know they had COVID, and then subsequently gets diagnosed, they can actually trace who's been in that shop.
Yes.
Or mostly it's on your phone, so you know where you've been.
Yeah. Well, that
So
sounds a
they've
really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, the ministry set up an app for contact tracing, but also I tend to record my movements in my calendar on my phone. So if
Yes.
I go-
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
no, that sounds a really good
um,
way of doing it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, thank you so much for that, June and Dave. It's been fantastic to talk to you both about that. It was really interesting to hear how things are in New Zealand. And so thanks so much for joining us.
pleasure.
Yeah,
See you
pleasure.
soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.
take
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Well, we've had some interesting interviews there. What do you make of it all, Jen?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things was the fact that wherever people have been, they've had to take on board homeworking. And it's interesting that in the beginning, people seem to have really enjoyed that. They haven't had to commute, they haven't had to go into work every day. They found it more relaxing. But as time has gone on, they've realised that, homeworking, it isn't everything. We've got so much good virtual interaction, but they do miss face-to-face contact. So it's still an important feature. Life will change, but we can't do without physical contact with our friends and work colleagues.
Yeah, I think, and Steve was saying that, although we couldn't include everything for his interview, Steve from Oman, that camaraderie, same sort of thing that Nathan was saying, that camaraderie is the thing that you somehow can't replace. The conversations at the coffee machine or the incidental things that help a team to work and help people to work together. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's interesting about the different things you put in the windows, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were saying we put rainbows, they put teddy bears.
Yes.
But still, I suppose that's part of the human effort's always there to connect, isn't it? We always want to have that connection.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's right. That's right.
rainbows, teddy bears, whatever it is, trying to have that connection with people. Or here, a big red flag opposite, but we won't say any more about that, just in case.
No, absolutely not. No, we can't mention that. No.
You be quiet.
No, you didn't say that.
Anyway, things put out to try and connect with like-minded people. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. It differs from country to country. So yeah, no, thanks for that.
Okay, just a couple of comments from
Oh,
chat.
comments, good.
So Thelma says, Chuckles says thank you for the award. She loves living in New Zealand.
Thanks, Chuckles.
And Dave,
Well deserved award.
and Dave has pointed out that he thinks you look very smart, Pete.
Yes, you do look very smart.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I have had my teeth bleached, so yeah. Thanks for noticing. Oh, and the tie as well.
Yes,
It's the tie. It's definitely the tie. Yes.
Yeah, a new image.
Oh,
Definitely.
okay.
Okay, great stuff. Okay, so now it's time to pass over to Jen for her reflection.
This morning, I was reading in the Bible about how Jesus healed a leper. Leprosy was and is a seriously debilitating disease. And in biblical times, it was associated with a person being pushed out of their community and certainly having no physical contact with others. They were singled out, isolated, and on their own. As I've been listening to our guests this evening, I've been reminded again of this story. Living with leprosy is a long way from the experience of most of us, but during COVID, people have experienced feelings of being cut off, excluded, and literally being heartbroken. We've all experienced different problems. Some people have welcomed the peace and isolation, while for others it has been incredibly traumatic. Others have found refuge through new ways of communicating with family and even burying themselves in their work and study. Some have had extreme mental anxiety and will struggle hard to begin to come out of lockdown, while others will gleefully get outside, mingle, and try and get back to normality, whatever that may be, as quickly as possible. Whatever our situation, and despite many inspiring moments as well, we've all suffered and lost something in these weeks. And I know I take great comfort in the story of the leper. He reached out his hand and asked Jesus to heal him. And Jesus did. When times are tough, it helps to know that that's all it takes. Reach out to him and he can touch our lives in unimaginable ways.
Thanks, Jenny. And now it's time for us all to say goodbye. And a big thank you to our wonderful guests, Callum, Tamara, Steve, Susie and Nathan, June and Dave. And bye from all of us. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah, see you next time.
Yeah, don't miss us. And now we're going
Next
to leave.
time.
We're going to leave you with something from Pete.
Yes, just a final thought. Wonderful to be out of lockdown. I was in the park today watching people play catch. It's just lovely to be out. And I was watching, I saw this amazing frisbee. And as I watched, I thought, why is that frisbee getting bigger and bigger and bigger? And then it hit me.